This week we're looking at the Abomination of Desolation and an editorial comment that's either made by Jesus or Mark. And we're going to find that in Mark's Gospel, chapter 13, verse 14. Let's begin by reading the verse from the ESV. But when you see the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not to be, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So our verse breaks naturally into three parts. We're going to look at each part separately, but what we're going to do is we're going to look at part 1, then we'll look at part 3, and then we'll circle back around to part 2, which is that editorial comment that I think is pretty interesting. But first up, let's take a look at the beginning of the verse in Koine. Hotan de idete to bdelugma tes eremoseos estekota hupu ude. So first up, hotan. Hotan is when. So very important in this verse. It's not if you should see this thing, but when you should see this thing. So hotan de, but when, and then idete, which is an aorist active subjunctive verb in the second person plural. When you should see, or when you might see. So it's talking about a possibility or a probability. There's going to be a time, and in that time, when it comes that you might see this thing. What is the thing? The thing is bdelugma. That's a tough word to say, bdelugma, because there are no silent letters in Koine. Bdelugma is a detestable thing, a vile thing, or a defiling thing. So when you see this vile or defiling thing, and then we're told tes eremoseos, which is what's called an epexegetical genitive. And what does that mean? An epexegetical genitive modifies the head noun, which is this defiling thing, and tells us more about it. Like to what extent, or with what result, or in what regard. Like, so what is it about it? Why is it, what do we know about the defiling thing? It's so defiling as to give us tes eremoseos, which is the same root as the word desert or deserted place, an abandoned place. This defiling thing, this vile thing, is of such a nature that it will render the place either uninhabitable or would make you want to abandon it, to get, you want to get away from there. So the ESV translates it the abomination of desolation. A bunch of other translations say the abomination that causes desolation or that brings desolation, to carry out that sort of epexegetical sense of the genitive modifier here. So when you should see, or when you might see an abomination, a thing that's vile and defiling, to such an extent that it causes desolation. It makes the place desertable. I don't want to be where this thing is. When you see that, estekota, standing, and then we get this cool little phrase at the end, hopu ude, where it ought not. Where it ought not. So when you see this thing, what kind of thing? A defiling or vile thing. How so? Inasmuch as it makes you not want to be where the thing is. When you see it, where it ought not be. A place where it just shouldn't be. This is an Old Testament allusion to Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It's also in Daniel 11:31 and Daniel 12:11. And it's not in the scope of the purpose of Koine Corner to dig deeply into those passages and the theological significance, but what you're faced with, you should go back and read those passages from Daniel. And historically, there's a lot of weight towards this being Antiochus IV Epiphanes from around 167 BC, where we get the his actions and activities regarding the temple in Jerusalem give us the Maccabean revolt and the story of Hanukkah. But that's for you to go back and determine whether you think Antiochus IV is and what he did at the temple is the abomination of desolation, or that causes desolation, or if it's something else. That's going to be up to you. But there's the beginning of our verse. But when you should see a defiling thing that causes or results in desolation, in making you want to desert or abandon that place, standing where it ought not be, then we're going to jump down to part 3. Tote hoi en te Judei getosan eis ta ore. So tote, then, so when you should see that thing, then this is what you do. Hoi en te Judei, the ones in Judea, phugetosan, should flee, let them flee, eis ta ore, into the mountains. So if you're in Jerusalem, let's presume that the place where it ought not be is the temple. For the sake of discussion, let's assume that it's the temple. When you should see the vile and detestable thing that makes you want to abandon that place, then you should flee to the mountains. Those of you in Judea should flee to the mountains. That brings us back around to our editorial comment, the second part of the verse. Ho anagnoskon noieto. So, ho anagnoskon, the one who reads or the reader. And it's in the third person. It's an imperative in the third person. Let the one who reads, or let the reader, noeto, understand. Let the reader understand. Notice, very important, what's happening? Jesus is giving a public address. He's speaking to a group of people. So this phrase is not let the hearer understand, not let the listener understand, not let the one with ears to hear, as we get elsewhere. Let the reader understand. So we have two possibilities here with this editorial comment. It's either by Jesus as he's speaking to these people, or it's by Mark as he's writing his gospel. Let's start with Jesus. In the immediate context, Jesus doesn't have readers, Jesus has listeners, right? So when he says, let the reader understand, given the immediate context and the allusions to the 3 verses in Daniel that I referenced, the readers would be people who read the book of Daniel, who have a familiarity with that piece of apocalyptic literature from Daniel, and that they would get the reference and they would reflect back upon that reference. And now, if it's Antiochus in 167 BC, for Jesus to be talking about them seeing something in where it ought not be, something defiling to the point of making you want to abandon the place, it would seem strange if that's something historic and that Jesus isn't talking about something to come. But set that aside and let's go to our second option. What if it's not Jesus making the editorial comment? What if it's Mark as the writer of his gospel? Mark as a writer has readers. Let the reader understand. It would make sense if Mark is making an editorial comment to his reading audience for them to understand the significance of, again, the references back to Daniel that a Jewish audience would pick up on and apply to what they're looking at. But what if it's Mark not talking about let the reader understand, meaning people who are reading his gospel, but if he's saying, as it could have been with Jesus, let the one who reads Daniel understand this reference and this allusion and apply it to what Jesus is saying here. Here's the struggle. Grammatically, there's no way for us to look at these choices and refine it down to one. It's up to you to decide whether the editorial comment is from Jesus or from Mark, and if the readers are the readers of Daniel or the readers of Mark's gospel. So happy hunting. Go back and read through the whole thing again, and you decide what you choose to do with that. So because there isn't a grammatical determinant, it comes down to hermeneutics, it comes down to exegesis, it comes down to you making value-based decisions and judgments. The great news is if you get it wrong, it's probably not that big of a deal, because at the heart of the matter is what this abomination that is so vile and so defiling that it renders the place a desert. It renders the place either uninhabitable or not desirable as a place to be. And if you see this thing standing where it ought not, probably in a holy place, if we go back to Daniel's 3 verses, and you're in Judea, flee to the mountains, because the bad stuff is about to happen, says Jesus, with the editorial comment either from him or from Mark. Let the one who reads, let the reader understand. Hope that was interesting for you. If it was, please let me know in the feedback in your comments. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, hit the notification bell so you know when there's new content. And until next time, Karis Kairene Humin, grace and peace to you.